Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a cast from the Last Player Standing StarCraft 2 Open number 2. My name is Copo, and today we're watching Ethereal, our blue Protoss, in the left spawning position, versus sixjaxDDE, our red Terran, in the right spawning position on GSL dual site today. I don't know how familiar any of you are with this map. It is not a map that's ever at any point entered the ladder map pool for Blizzard, but it is played fairly often on in tournaments and the like. Obviously in GSL is where it originated, hence the name, or hence the GSL prefix to the map name. It's an interesting map. You know, it's kind of cut in half. You got green on one side, red on the other, but really, other than the obvious graphical differences, it is just a fairly well-made map. There's no nothing really to choose. As it stands, it's not a 4-player map, so it's kind of nice to have another 2-player map in there. Blizzard seems to be going the way of 4-player maps in their ladder pool, which is quite unfortunate, actually, I might say. I much prefer the standard 2-player maps. They just seem to be much more simple and much more well designed for 1v1s in that manner. So this is a cast from the round of 64, I do believe, for the Last Player Standing StarCraft 2 Open number 2. LastPlayerStanding.com if anybody wants to check out exactly where the standings are and anything else about this tournament. This tournament does feature Diamond 3 Grandmaster players competing for, I do believe, a $500 first place prize. And we've been asked to do some of the initial games, so I don't know, sit back and enjoy, guys. We'll be uploading a lot of games from this tournament over the next couple days, so you guys can enjoy some early action from this tournament. There are some fairly well-known players in here. We have a couple Koreans playing, some well-known North American players as well, so we should see some good games here, as opposed to the lower league stuff that usually gets put up on our channel. You'll see some decent games here. So we do see an decently early barracks put down by sixjaxDDE, nothing too special. The refinery goes up, so it does look like a standard opening from the Terran player. Same with Protoss. We see a gateway finishing as the assimilator is finished as well. Doesn't look like anything too cheesy going on here. Hopefully we don't see any of that. None of that crap. But yeah, standard all the way throughout. Supply depot being put down. No proxying done by the Protoss, which is nice to see. No proxy gateways, no proxy pylon put forth as of yet. Although this probe is sneaking over here, so maybe we'll see a bit of action out of him. It usually seems to be the way Protoss goes. If they're going for any sort of attack, obviously the proxy pylon helps immensely. Although I don't need to tell these players what to do, because obviously they know better than I do exactly what their builds are and how they'll execute them. Cybernetics core is about 4/5 done for Ethereal. That's how I'm going to say his name. If it's wrong, forgive me. Reactor going down in the barracks, obviously seen some marine pressure there, no fast marauder. This is against Protoss, and marauders are a fairly common opening, but apparently we're going to see some marines instead, nothing wrong with that. Warp gate starts right as the Cybernetics core finishes, which is a key indicator of good timings by the Protoss player. We do see a factory being dropped now by DDE. No additional barracks being dropped as of yet that I can see, so we're just going straight for the tech. Second gas has been dropped and has been saturated. Yep, no, only 2 miners on that, 2 SCVs on that gas actually, so maybe it's a bit of a misclick. Either way, I'm sure he'll be just fine in the long run. Warp gate's still chugging along there. We don't see any additional gateways being dropped yet, so the Protoss's tech choice is not apparent yet, but the Terran's is. This factory is still chugging along at being a unit producing structure. It's not quite there yet, but I'm sure give it a bit of time and it'll eventually work its way. Second barracks being dropped down, so we'll see some marine pressure. Hopefully, maybe some Hellions mixed in, or maybe some early tanks put out, depending. Tanks usually not the best way to go against Protoss, but unless you're going a very unusual mech style. Most Terrans prefer to play bio against Protoss. I know myself, I definitely prefer to go that way. You see 2 more gateways being dropped by the Protoss, so 3-gate of some kind, 3-gate robo maybe. Second gas is going down, so a robo is a likely possibility, or maybe just heavy sentries into that 3-gate expand that we love so much. Starport now being dropped as soon as that factory finishes, and we see a tech lab being built in the factory, so we'll either see some mad switching or we'll see some tanks. I'm sure we'll be made aware of that very quickly. We do see the factory lifting up after it builds the tech lab, and the barracks being dropped on it, so we'll see some marauders, maybe some stim out of that. Nice timing actually, if we can get that start on that stim. I'd very much like to see that. There we go, perfect timing. And this stalker managed to poke out at the front, but it decides to return home. These marines obviously were too much of a match for that one lonely stalker that tried to poke its head in there. You see warp gate's not quite done yet. These gateways are still chugging away at building units. We see a robo going down, so apparently the choice is a 3-gate robo, not 3-gate sentry expand. So we won't see an expansion out of either of these players for a little while by the looks of it. Neither shows any sign of doing anything but teching. We do see a reactor being built in the starport, so we should see some medevacs out of here. Apparently we are going to see a fairly heavy bio mech. Like I said, mech is very, very rare against Protoss. so to do mech would actually be something unusual and kind of neat to see, not gonna lie. Factory's lifting off, and we're gonna see a bit of a scouting factory. Obviously we're not gonna need that factory for anything else. It means that is a very clear indicator that we're not gonna see any mech play this game, so away goes the factory. I'd follow it on its journey, but it's actually not very exciting at all. We do see the wall off completely with supply depots, so we can raise and lower that wall at will. Back at the Protoss' home base, we do see Observer, followed by Warp Prism, followed by additional Observer. He's queuing like mad, but nothing really wrong with that. No expansion yet for either of these players, a little bit curious. Both are obviously aiming for some sort of one base timing push. We do see DDE starting to move out down the ramp with a nice little force of medvacs, marines, and marauders. I do believe he's trying to hit a stim timing push, because stim will be approximately completed by the time he manages to get over to the base. So his Observer's about to just cross past the factory. One's an effective scout and one's just a very beefy scout, although the factory does do the job quite well if you have no other use for it. Supplies are fairly even, they're both macro and apparently very close to the same. This Observer is going to catch everything that's going on here. He's going to see that this force is moving out. Medvacs are trailing behind the Marine and Marauder force, and this factory is going to give vision up to the high ground if the Medvacs are unable to do that, which they are as well, but this factory does it just as well, and it's got 1,250 hit points. This little force is moving up the ramp here. Gotta be careful. Oh, factory's going to land. That'll create a bit of a choke, I guess. That's really all it's going to do. Force field goes down, not very effective at all. These units are able to freely back up. Marines moving up the ramp, and the force field cuts off about 4 or 5 Marines. These zealots are going to shoot those apart. Medvacs do their best to heal, but obviously that number of zealots is far too much of a match for those couple Marines. Another force field goes down, trapping a couple more Marines and a Marauder up, and that disintegrates quite quickly. There isn't a very heavy sentry count here, so we won't be able to force field that ramp forever. Factory's going to try and land again, maybe a little bit cheeky on Terran's part, but we'll see exactly where this goes. This Observer's seeing everything that's going on. If you see a Marine loaded up in the medvac, might be a mistake. Force field's the ramp. Zealots are able to, I don't know, massacre a couple of those Marines, but he's not trapping too many at a time, so this force is still fairly well sized. Picking away at this factory now, trying to kill it, and there's another force field going down, trapping a good amount of units there. Zealots are able to rip through these Marines. Another force field, and medvac goes and picks up a Marauder and a couple Marines to save them. This attack is it's quite annoying. It actually killed the factory, so we'll see exactly if that has any effect on anything at all. He obviously didn't care about having the factory in place for later game. This force is still decently sized. I'm waiting for him to push up. There's more sentries being built here, so we can force field this ramp essentially forever until he feels the need that doesn't need to happen, or he misses one and lets some units up. He's just going to push down the ramp instead. Stalker leading the way. That gets quickly killed. Guardian Shield goes up, but that didn't really help that force at all. That was kind of a unnecessary engagement by the Protoss. We do see that both are in kind of a standoff position here. I'm assuming they're both macroing up by looks at the production tab. Mortal coming out now, out of that robo. Second Immortal coming out actually for the Protoss. I missed the first one. Mortal not too great against Marines though. This isn't a very heavy Marauder count. There's still quite a few Marines in here. Third medevac to join the fray. We're seeing Combat Shield being researched now and an Orbital Command going up. Obviously we're seeing the expansion going up by the Terran. But this little force down here is still very, very annoying for the Protoss. He is unable to expand past this force. That might be what DDE's plan is altogether. He might be just trying to prevent the Protoss from expanding. This little force is actually doing a very effective job of that and preventing the Protoss from taking his natural, while sixjaxDDE decides to go back and just take his own. Nothing wrong with expanding. If you've got the Protoss contained, you may as well just try and expand and get that economy advantage and keep this force here just to be annoying for the most part. We do see that the bio is 1-0 on these on this Terran infantry here. We don't see any further upgrades coming down except for Combat Shield. Everything else is just going into units that are being rallied down here to join with the rest of the force that is currently keeping the Protoss at bay. DDE doing a very nice macro job. He's ahead currently about 20 supply. He's trying to bleed the Protoss dry by the looks of it. These mineral patches are starting to run a little bit low. They're not in perilous danger yet, but we have reached the 12-minute and 30-second mark of the game, and the Protoss has yet to find a way to expand. So if he doesn't get out and expand soon, this could actually turn into a very, very one-sided match. The medevac's poking up there, trying to do a bit of damage, but there's a third base going down here for DDE, and it is at the gold expansion, meaning that he'll be able to pull in minerals all that much faster. Highly unfortunate for Ethereal, if you will, something similar to that, who apparently is not exactly sure what to do. He's saving Chrono Boost for God only knows what, and he's really just building up units that won't be able to take out this force. This force is very, very well composed by DDE. He's doing a great job of keeping the Protoss in his base. Well, he simply sits back and just mines away. This Observer can clearly see everything that's going on, but doesn't allow the Protoss to actually do anything about it. You see more units being warped in here. I don't see any way. This Protoss is actually really, really stuck in this situation. There's not a whole lot he can do. Looks like we're starting to get some Colossi out. That'll be a way to take care of some of the infantry and give some advantage back to the Protoss, but it does also create a very big target. So you got to make sure to keep that Colossus alive. It is actually crucial. Fires off one shot there and takes some damage for its effort. So obviously not going to work. Protoss tries to move down the ramp now. Zealots are all trapped on the ramp. That's not going to work at all. I don't see Zealot charge. Do I see Twilight Council? I don't even see a Twilight Council. Zealot charge would actually be pretty effective in this situation. It'd be kind of nice to see it. It would allow them to engage the infantry that much sooner and make them just more than just normal meat shields. It would actually allow them to do a significant amount of damage and might be able to break this contain. Something I'd like to see out of the Protoss anyways. You see that this gold base is up and operational, morphing into an orbital command. I'm sure he'll drop mad amounts of mules. Actually, we're lacking mineral patches on this one. I don't know this map incredibly well, but we do only have 5 gold mineral patches and a rich Vespian geyser, so that is actually, as hard as that would be to take normally, when you have the Protoss contained, the space is actually very, very easy to secure, because obviously the Protoss cannot leave his base. We do see 3 Zealots being warped in outside the base, taunting a Marine, and the Marine's taunting it. One way or the other, those 3 Zealots will do very, very little damage. One Marine back here just making sure that nothing tricky is going on at this expansion. We could see some, maybe a Warp Prism, carry a probe down there and expand, but really DDE would be able to shut that down very, very quickly. And right now this is just actually a very, very effective contain. There's not a whole lot the Protoss can do about it, while DDE keeps sending units down here, reinforcing, quickly increasing his supply. Ethereal is obviously not very happy with that, as we can gauge by the chat. But unfortunately DDE is just doing a great job of containing. We do see 2 Vikings out. Once he spots the Colossi, his Vikings will get produced. And obviously Vikings, the hard counter to Colossi in this matchup. We do see just some solid macro going back here. We do see a missile turret in case there's any tricky air stuff by the Protoss, but I don't believe he's quite decided to go that route yet. We do see the main is starting to get mined out, but we do have obviously 3 bases up, one of them being that gold. A little minor engagement here by those 3 Zealots that were warped in earlier, but those were taken out quite quickly. Goes back here to be used mostly for their EMPs. I doubt they'll be sniping anything, because EMPs are so much more effective against Protoss. And the Vikings are here to take down the Colossi, so EMP is definitely the way to go in this situation. 3 more Zealots are marching across the field. Mad Marine micro by DDE. Obviously that's one nice thing about casting a higher league game, is that we get to see micro like that. We also get to see a very, very long standoff here. They're both just massing up an army. Ethereal's now behind immensely in supply, because he does not have the macro available that DDE does, because he is only on, Ethereal, pardon me, is only on 1 base. Obviously his macro will be a lot slower off of only 1 base and that many mineral patches, as he is quickly getting mined out, and he'll have to make a move at some point if he hopes to break this contain and expand. I expect to see DDE taking more expansions, maybe this one right here. Obviously it seems to be their normal third, but he instead took the gold as his third. You see some Colossi with extended thermal lance. Something thermal lance anyways. Thermal lance of some kind, picking away at these Marines, but they will not be able to engage any closer due to the Vikings. Vikings don't want to rush up there because of the Stalkers, so it's really just a classic standoff situation. We do see that these Marines and Marauders are 1-1. These Colossi trying to hop down the cliff, and they get shot for their trouble. Viking count now climbing dangerously high for Ethereal. He really needs to do something before this Viking count gets any higher. So you see more Vikings are being produced by the Terran player. Those Colossi just melt the Vikings, so he really needs to manage to break this contain before the Viking count gets too high, because those Colossi are hugely instrumental in trying to break this. Yeah, this is probably the biggest standoff I've ever seen. Ethereal can't do anything against this. He's still sitting just on 3 gates, 1 robo, with that robotics bay to pump out the Colossi, or to allow him to pump out the Colossi, and he's just building pylons. He was supply blocked, but right now his mineral intake is hardly anything. He's down to 2 mineral patches, neither of which have hardly anything left on them. DDE has ceased to expand. He realizes that right now he's got his Protoss buddy just where he wants him, and this is highly unfortunate. I really don't see any way for Ethereal to get out of this. This Marine, Marauder, Medevac, Viking, Ghost mixture of everything is climbing a little bit too high for the Protoss to deal with. Probes are sitting back here trying to mine from every mineral patch they can find, which is currently 2. And we still just see the standoff. Protoss has yet to expand, and DD is getting quickly closer to supply capping himself, and will eventually have to make a move at some point, because he has successfully bled the Protoss dry, and pretty much, I'm not going to call this game yet, but he's pretty much won this game, because his mineral field will be down to 15 minerals, 10 minerals now, and once that field runs out, there's going to be a whole bunch of idle probes that can't do anything. Warp Prism coming in now to carry down some probes to God only knows where. He might try and expand somewhere, but I have a feeling that that will get shut down very, very quickly. He's now very, very, very far behind in the macro game, and there's not a whole lot he can do about it. He's dropping probes down at this expansion, trying to maybe expand here, but this Marine is fully aware of what is going on, I would think, and he picks up and goes back home. We do see this death ball here. Might try and move out. Actually, it is going to try and move out. It's all it's got left. Protoss, this is basically its last stand here. Last stand and only stand. He's been standing for a while in his base. And he just calls the GG. He knows there's nothing he can really do about this. He's going to charge down the ramp anyways. Maybe try and get off some good force fields. He actually gets off some decent force fields. Cuts that army fairly in half. But these Vikings are just tearing apart the Colossi. Those being the big damage dealers with those force fields. Last Colossi manages to fall. And this Bio is just going to charge off the ramp and massacre Vikings land just to try and do a little bit of extra DPS, and that is the game. We just did GG called. So no bad manners there, and DDE just going to continue to... He left the game, but his units are on auto kill, since apparently that's what they do in this game. So those are my first cast personally. I do believe the second one will be uploading for the Last Player Standing StarCraft 2 Open number 2. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of our coverage of these early rounds, and I will see you guys later.